Hello and welcome, or welcome back if this is not your first time listening to the Communicate Responsibly podcast. It's hard to believe this is our third week together, and if this is your first time tuning in, I would encourage you to go back and listen to the first week where I talked about communication as a habit. And then the second week, where I talked about communication and the role of active listening, because these all kind of build on each other. And today we are going to talk about nonverbal communication. Yikes. At least, yikes for me. I was nervous about doing this week's session and about talking about nonverbals in general, which is weird because I'm the one who planned out these 52 weeks that we're going to have together, and I'm the one who put nonverbal communication as the third week. And then I realized how much I have to learn about nonverbal communication, which is good because that's why I'm here. So I've done quite a bit of research over the last 3 weeks and really drilled down over the last week to get this conversation going. I've talked to some people, some of whom listened to the first 2 weeks and they got in touch with me. And I asked their opinions about nonverbal communication because a lot of it is opinion. Like, what do you see as nonverbal communication? And some of it, which is really generalized into how does everyone experience cues, energy, those things that aren't just words. We're going to cue that all into kind of round it all into nonverbal communication. So I want to invite you, if you have been listening to me, to email me, get in touch with me with any kind of feedback, any things that you have seen that you think I should tighten up on, especially because I need that. And the reason I am doing this, my primary focus, is to hopefully increase the level of effective communication that I'm using, that you folks are using, and that our nation and the world maybe will start to use in a more effective way. Because we are in a spot right now, right? And it's our spot going through this human life. And what are we going to do about it, right? The thing you can do every day, every single day, is communicate. And if you want to work on improving that, this is the place for you. It's the place for me too. So, having said all that, I'm going to pull up some of my notes because I don't want to miss anything. I'll be honest with you, I thought this week was going to go really quick. I thought, oh, this will be 15, 20-minute podcast tops on nonverbal communication. Then I started to look into it. I started to ask people stuff, and I went, oh, no, this is pretty full. So I got to probably trim some of this down, but let's just jump in. So, what is nonverbal communication? Like I said, today I'm going to give you a number of ideas that are anything but words. And this is going to be a little bit weird because they may involve how you say words, the intonation of your voice, but not just words. So texting would be considered complete verbal communication in the way we're going to look at it, just words. And if right now you're going, but I put those little pictures in there too, okay, but those are not human emotions, human pictures. We would still put that in as verbal. Come back to that. If you hear some clinking around, it's because we got a new puppy this week. Excited and nervous. So that brings us up to three. And I've been watching a lot of nonverbal communication with these three, some verbal as well. And I learned some things from them. All right. Have you ever got done with a conversation with somebody and just felt like something was off? And it wasn't what they said, it was just you were picking up a vibe, right? Now we get into the realm of nonverbal communication because most of that effectiveness, how we feel, did this go well, did this not go well, is interpretation. And it's based on a lot of cues that you take from the person you're communicating with. And I just want to throw out there that those cues, in a general way, are based on three basic things. How much do you trust that person? How much do you feel safe with that person? And how much of an influence does that person have on you? So trust, safety, and influence are three basic kind of things that will sway nonverbal communication. The other thing, I say this every week and I'm going to say it again. As we go through, if you go, wow, I'm not really good at this stuff, that's okay. Communication is a habit, it is things you can learn. What are things that you notice on other people when you're having a conversation or communicating or just kind of people watching? Well, one of the first things that everybody judges the energy and the effectiveness from is facial expressions. And I would say, in particular, for me, the eyes. I've always believed with that saying, the eyes are the window to the soul. But the eyes can tell a lot. But our faces in general, smiling, frowning, surprised, upset, our faces really have hundreds, if not thousands, of different expressions, and some are very minute that offer nonverbal communication. Another very basic aspect of this is eye contact. How much eye contact is somebody making with you? A third thing we talk about a lot is posture. How is somebody standing or sitting, or what is their presence in front of you as you're communicating? Another thing, definitely nonverbal communication, is the physical distance between you. And I've had a lot of conversations with people about this. What is the personal space that you are comfortable with? What is the hula hoop that you like to put around you? And again, remember, it's going to depend on who the person that you're with. Do you feel they're safe? Do you trust them? How much influence do they have on you? But physical distance is a way that we communicate nonverbally. And then this is a big one. I think I've mentioned this before for me, silence. So I know I am guilty of using silence sometimes when I am angry. I am using silence, or I have used silence as a form of disapproval. I don't approve with what you're saying, so I'm just going to go quiet. Those things, I think we can agree, are all not saying a word, don't even involve words. But here's the thing I want to put into the mix, and I wouldn't have if I hadn't done some research on nonverbal communication. Now, when you look up different theories and thoughts about nonverbal communication, there's a lot of schools of thought that say it can involve words, but the tone, the pace, and the volume which you are saying those words in also could go under nonverbal communication. And just to put some emphasis on that, if somebody says, hey, when you go out, can I pick up the egg? Can you pick up some eggs on your way home? And you go, oh, pick up the eggs. Great idea. Got it. Versus somebody asking you the same question and you saying, oh, pick up the eggs. Great idea. I got it. Same words, whole different meaning. So tone, pace, and volume have gone into some theories and thoughts about nonverbal communication because with something like texting, you lose that completely. And I don't know a lot about texting. It would be great if I had somebody that I considered an expert and I would bring them in. Because when I started thinking about that, I thought, but what if they put the laughing emoji? Or what if they put this other emoji? And as I read about that, it was kind of like, yeah, but those are still computer generated emojis. So at this point, tone, pace, volume may be part of nonverbal communication too. And I think that makes sense when you talk to people and given your life experience. I'm sure you have said things in a way where your body language, your tone, your volume did not coordinate with what you were saying. And when that happens, we as human beings tend to believe the body, right? That's why we're able to say sometimes, wow, that conversation, that was just off. I mean, they didn't disagree with me. It wasn't a fight, but something wasn't right there. To go a little bit deeper into that, not all of us can pick up on those cues. And we've found more and more about that. There's been much more talk in the last 10 or 20 years about autism or people being on the spectrum. And I'm using those terms very generally, not clinically. But I think what we found is that not everybody is really good at picking up on these nonverbal cues when we include tone and volume and delivery as well. And knowing that if that's someone you're having a communication conversation with, that's important. So, people are the same in that they always want to know when you are talking with someone, is this person judging me? Does this person accept me? Right? When you are kind of dialing into nonverbal communication, this is part of, as I look through my notes, this is part of the thing that made me hesitant to talk about this subject because I don't believe that every time somebody crosses their arms, they are closed off to what I'm saying, or when they cross their legs necessarily, or even when I'm talking to them and their phone buzzes and they go, "Oh, I'm sorry, can I just take that?" I am not someone to believe that based on those one things, they're shutting me down, they're being disrespectful, although the phone thing sometimes still can tweak me, especially if there's someone who does that continuously. It is better for you if you are someone who has difficulties with that, or you believe things. Another one I heard watching crime shows was every time someone looks up to the left, they're lying. And every time someone looks up to the right, they're telling the truth. I don't know if I got that right, but I've heard things like that. It is better to look for clusters of nonverbal communication and not just gestures. So, in general, now this is a situation where I know this person, and I believe that I'm pretty good on picking up on this person's nonverbals, not just the words they say, but all the things that go along with it. Do they seem more closed just in their posture? Are they standing further away from me than they usually do? Are they more silent than they've been in the past? Is their eye contact with me, has that changed somehow? Do they seem restless or fidgety and they're not usually like that? Or if they're usually like that, do they seem really still? And in general, as human beings, are they leaning in or are they pulling back in some ways? A cluster of those things, not just one thing, but a cluster of those things might tell you that something is going on. There's a deeper issue here that you need to get to. And that is why we want to discover and learn more about nonverbal communication when we are in conversations. One of the things that was very clear when I was researching this is that nonverbal cues are not truth detectors. Like, oh, that's your sign. I think there's even shows now where they play card games, blackjack and things, and they have a tell, they have a sign. That's kind of Hollywood. Nonverbal cues might just be doing this because you're cold, or you might just be looking away because there is something that's stimulating you, or you have a new puppy like I do in here. Her name is Mickey, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. And it's short for McLovin. If you have seen the movie, oh, now I can't remember the name of the movie. But if you've seen the movie that has McLovin in it, she gives real McLovin vibes. Kind of Buddy the Elf meets McLovin. Super bad. That's the name of the movie. So it's not always about truth detectors, but it is letting you know something is going on here with this person in relationships where I know the person, and it's not, something's off with them. May involve you, it may not. Like the other 2 weeks I've talked about this, instead of assuming, oh, they must be mad at me, or oh, they're not listening, or oh, they're being disrespectful. In almost every week, I'm going to encourage you and encourage myself to get curious about what's going on with this person. And that may mean asking questions. I noticed today you're a little quieter. What's going on for you? And you can even say, I might be misreading this, but I noticed you don't seem engaged or you seem distracted. Is everything okay? Asking those questions is going to help you not to walk away and then play it over and over if you're one of those people that plays the tape over and over, or if you're a people pleaser like I am, hopefully in recovery from. Somehow I caused this and it's my fault. Asking questions is really about getting curious. All right, so let me go down a little bit further in my notes here. We already talked about tone and pace. Now I want you to think about for yourself. How is your tone? How is your pace? I've had a few people with this podcast say when I started off, I was talking very slowly, and I may actually be talking slower than some of you are used to, or even slower than I have talked in the past. As a person who had slash has some form of anxiety, I'm not going to label myself with whatever it is. I know when I'm nervous, my speech gets faster. It is a form of anxieties for me. So slowing my pace down does help me not just with my anxiety, but also with my thoughts. If I can find a pace that works in my communication where it's not like I'm scripting every thought I'm going to say, but I feel comfortable as I'm talking, that is so much more effective for me. And I'm sure I'll come back to that topic in future weeks because when I was learning motivational interviewing, and especially when I went out to that conference to get trained in Minnesota, I was really surprised by the amount of silences in between discussions that people were having. Even presentations, the presenters would go much slower than I've seen other presenters go, and then there were silences. So, the other thing to remember and think about, reflect on for yourself, what does silence mean to you? So, I was someone that was never very comfortable with silence. And when I'm nervous, that sometimes comes back. I've gotten more comfortable with silences. And again, being curious about the silence is an important aspect of this. But also, when there is silence in a relationship with somebody, what does that mean to you? It's interesting for me, I can usually spot these everything we've talked about in other people, the nonverbal things with other people I know and some people I don't know. And probably from being a counselor in the substance use disorder field, I have picked up on these nonverbal skills, and a lot of times people would come in. Of course, they would be nervous. I don't think anybody wants to come in and talk about a possible substance use disorder or having a substance use disorder or the trouble they got into because of their substance use disorder. But I think over time, I was able to read those things a little bit better. But the thing that's harder for me to figure out is my own nonverbals. So asking a question like, how do people feel when they talk to me? And what are the signals I think I give to other people is really important. My wife has told me that I do not have a poker face. I would not be good on one of those shows, and I agree with her. My wife and I have also had the discussion that as one gets older, it has been our experience that we care less about what people think of us. So perhaps we do not disguise our nonverbal behaviors as much as we might have done when we were younger. We are in a place, as I've talked about before, in our world, in our country, where there's a lot of conflict. So part of the reason for me doing this is hopefully reinforcing, I guess, my own skills in not making the conflict any worse, and also maybe bringing some calm into these situations. And for me, as I was getting ready for this week, a great example of nonverbal communication and the energy that's there is I have been out to a lot of protests since last time this year, January, as January comes to a close. And I don't know a lot of the people there, and I don't even interact with the people there. But when I go there, there is a feeling there, and the feeling is not anger, and the feeling is not rage. The feeling is a togetherness that we understand each other and we think justice is not happening in some ways, and we think people aren't being treated fairly, and we think things need to change. And all of that can be felt in an energy without having any direct communication with each other. So, that to me is what we're going to talk about a little bit here. What can you do if you're going into a situation where you know there's going to be conflict? You're nervous about it, or it's someone you don't get along with, or you got to get together with that family, or maybe even rather than conflict, maybe it's an uncomfortable situation for you. Over the last 3 weeks, I've had two people I was very close with that passed away. And as much as I wanted to show my respect and go to their services, I was very nervous going to those services. A lot of that was because I hadn't reached out to these people. I knew they had been sick and I felt guilty, even ashamed that I hadn't reached out to them, but I was very nervous going. I forced myself to go. And the same type of thing that I saw here in terms of tips going into those situations might work for you. So the first thing I would suggest you do is slow your body down before you walk in there. Take some deep breaths, right? Be very conscious if there is conversation, if you are talking, of your pace of talking. If it's a conflict and the energy is all pumped up, maybe go in a little bit higher with that level and then you take the lead to bring it down. And I'm going to get deeper into that. Um, it's suggested that you leave your hands out or visible, not like up like this, but not in your pockets either, and not like this. Just kind of visible and out, shoulders squared. And make sure you, like I talked about breathing, but just breathing low and slow. Certainly not letting your volume go up, not getting into, we've talked about in past weeks, using foul language. At the protests, I don't have any signs I hold up that have foul language on it. I don't have any t-shirts and things like that, because then you're getting into an angry type of energy, and we want to avoid that. So the word that really jumped out to me, and I want to spend a few minutes on with nonverbal communication, is co-regulation. I had never heard of that before, but it's something I'm definitely going to be working on over the next days and weeks and months. So when I first started trying to deal with my anger and kind of express anger differently, I learned things like stay under control, right? Don't react to situations, respond. Don't raise your voice because that doesn't help. It's going to make things worse. But that's really about staying calm. That's really about me. The idea of co-regulation is really cool. I hadn't heard it before, but check this out. When you think about things from a very young age, like a baby doesn't understand language, but when you hold a baby, they relax. I'm finding the same thing for my puppy. She got some high energy, Mickey. So if you've ever been in a room where it's real tense and we want to talk about this thing, and then one person stands up and again, just be grounded and everything else, and they're not just calm, but they have an energy that brings other people down. It's co-regulation, right? It's biology. And we are connected beings that feel that. Our nervous system wonders if we are safe in different situations. And if there is one person or a couple people who are holding it together, who have their composure, who are not rising up and kind of losing it, flipping their lids, that is going to help with co-regulation. It's not really the words they say, it comes from their tone, it comes from their posture, it comes from their pace, it comes from their facial expressions, it comes from their energy. You know what does not work when somebody is in that situation and they're getting hyped up and you can tell that they're anxious and they're angry and they're nervous? Telling them to calm down. And I know you've done it because I've done it too. Just calm down, right? And as a parent, I know I've done that with my kids. No, no. Just telling somebody to calm down is never going to work. You need to show them what calm is. Slow your movements down. Soften your voice. Relax your face. Ground your posture, right? What you're doing is communicating an energy of safety without just saying, just calm down. You're hysterical right now. Just get yourself together. I think you can see how ridiculous that is. And right now, we definitely need some energy of people who are calm in the storm. And you could be that person. It has been shown in different studies that I was looking into that that person, the calm person or the person they call the most regulated, can set the tone or they can at least set the ceiling that we're not going to go any farther than this. We're not going to escalate any farther. And I think we have seen what happens when you have people who do not have this calming tone, they do not have this energy about them in leadership positions. It's a dumpster fire. They just keep throwing gasoline on the fire. They just keep escalating and escalating and escalating. It's not working, folks. So you staying calm a couple other things that I thought were interesting about this. Being calm isn't passive. It is you making a conscious decision that you are going to practice active containment. I have always thought that I am good at compartmentalizing my emotions. I don't know if that's the same thing. I still have to look into some of this co-regulation stuff that I'm telling you about, but I like active containment. I am making a conscious choice to remain calm and bring that energy in. It doesn't mean I'm ignoring harmful behavior or everyone who's screaming F-bombs and all these things that you may walk into, or they're calling me names or bringing up the past. And it doesn't mean I'm suppressing my feelings. And it doesn't mean I'm just being nice to someone, right? You can be calm and still be firm and still say that's not okay. And we're not going there. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about this. You can have boundaries and be a calm person. As a matter of fact, a lot of people would say that boundaries are more easily enforced or readily enforced when it comes from a calm source. It's all about our nervous systems and letting other people know it's going to be okay. Or at least I'm not going to go up to that level with you. How do you do it? Slow your speech down just a little bit, like I said before. Lower your volume. Lower your volume instead of raising it. Yelling may work for a time or two. My wife's a teacher of 4-year-olds, and she will tell you the teacher that yells is just going to have to yell louder and louder and louder. There's no ceiling to it, and the kids will just ignore it over time. But when someone lowers their volume, well, then you have to kind of listen, right? And you have to kind of go there. Even relaxing your face. I know sometimes I'm straining to hear. I know people who have problems hearing and it's not that they mean to look concerned. They're just trying to hear you. When possible, uncross your arms, even though it's one that I'm still like, I don't know what that's all about. But it does show you're more open if you're uncrossing your arms. And waiting until you respond, maybe taking not a deep sigh, not a, but just a, hmm, until you respond. What that says to people is this isn't an argument. I haven't been waiting for you to get done, and then I'm just going to jump in and tell you how wrong you are about everything. I am not a threat to you. That is not the energy I want to have to people. What's important here, and this may be difficult for you, when you're using all these tips, it's not about winning. It's not about winning the conversation. It's not even about winning the argument if you're up to argument level. It's about trying to stabilize the argument to a place where you can be somewhat intelligent, I think is fair to say, that we can have some discourse and not just I'm right, you're wrong. And again, I have to shake my head and laugh while I say this. When you think about where we're at in 2026, we really need to get back to this. And it takes one person to say, I'm going to do this intentionally, not to win the interaction. I'm going to stabilize the interaction because it's important to me. Otherwise, there's no conversation, there's no listening, there's no reasoning, there's no accountability on either side. Um, you're not just staying calm so you don't mess things up, right? You're staying calm to offer your nervous system this renewed thing of, I'm safe here. We got somewhere to land, right? So it's a lot. You might need to listen to this one twice. I know I keep reading these notes over and over again, but I would ask yourself over this next week, Again, when you're having conversations, do you think people are getting more tense around you, or do you think they feel calmer around you? And if you can hear Mickey, she's digging in on her pillow. Hopefully she's feeling calmer. And what are the things you're doing with your body, your nonverbals, that contribute to that? Maybe you can ask someone. Here's some other things as we wrap it up that you may want to do. Check yourself in the mirror, right? What is my facial? I think I'm smiling, but am I smiling? I think I'm frowning. How would someone know if I'm upset? What does that look like? Give yourself a mirror check. So try a sentence three different ways. Say it rushed, say it flat, and say it warmly. I use the example of, can you please stop and get the milk? But you can use a different one. If you are somebody who always just jumps right in when somebody's talking, have a 2 second pause. Make yourself have a 2 second pause before you respond. And if the person says, well, what are you doing? Because they're so used to you being like that, just, take a breath and say, I'm just thinking about what you said. We've already talked, I think, both weeks about reflection. That's a great place for a reflection because you're getting curious. You want to know if your body language is matching the message that you're saying. And again, none of this is about um, stuffing things. If you're upset, you can say, I'm upset right now. What you're saying to me really upsets me or hurts me. But you don't have to say, what you're saying to me really upsets me. You're no good. Right? And maybe you did that in the past. It's more effective to communicate in a way that is not trying to throw blame or shame on the other person. You can feel your feels, but we're talking about communicating in a way where you're changing things up. The other things I want you to know, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm not talking about fixing yourself with any of this. This whole project is not that you need to be fixed, and I hope you don't feel that way. What I am asking you to do is notice yourself. Notice the language you use. Notice the nonverbal cues you use. And notice, like I said before, how people are in relationship to you when you communicate. I'm really good at taking their inventory. That's what we say in the recovery world all the time. When you're taking everybody else's inventory, how about taking your own, right? So that's what this is going to be about. Notice yourself. And this week, I'm asking you to do it with some of these nonverbal things. And I think that's it for this week. I really appreciate you folks uh, who keep tuning in, and I hope you continue to do so. So that's it. Next week we have one word that we're going to work on. It's one of my favorite ones, though. Empathy. Empathy. And if you want to get a jump start on that, go listen or read anything by Brene Brown, and you will already be like you've already done your warm up before we get in next week, because I'm sure her name will come up in the conversation. Take care of yourselves, folks. Stay warm and communicate effectively. See ya.